Catherine Austin, and welcome to Living Karma Yoga. This is a show where we celebrate all that the yoga world has to offer, from the postures to music, mantra, meditation, travel, cooking, and so much more. You know, yoga for 1 hour just isn't enough in today's busy world, so we're going to help you take your yoga off the mat and into your life as well. I hope you find here many tools to help you live the life you deserve. And that's a life where you can literally vibrate love, joy, fulfillment, and abundance in all forms. So welcome to the show today. I'm really excited. I have two good friends with me. Valerie Weir is joining us today, and she also goes by Cool Beer, which is her spiritual name. Valerie is an ERYT 500 Kundalini Master Teacher and a yoga teacher trainer. She was trained directly by Yogi Bhajan, who brought Kundalini Yoga to the West, and she graduated as well from Joseph LePage's Integrative Yoga Therapy training. She apprentices in Stephen Forrest's Evolutionary Astrology program and is studying sound yoga with Don Conroe. And both of these practices relate directly to the Vedas, from which yoga originates. And Dale is with us today. Sat Shabad Singh is his spiritual name. And Dale's a digital publisher, history professor, yogi, and musician. He received his Kundalini Yoga Teacher Certificate in 2004 after studying in Anandapur Sahib, India. In 1990, he earned a PhD from Stanford University and then spent a year in Europe on a Fulbright Scholarship Fellowship. He now splits his work hours between Gale Sinaj Publishing and Oakland University. We're going to talk today with Dale and Valerie all about sound current and how this comes into play in yoga and so on, but I'm so glad you're here today. And thanks. I don't think I mentioned you definitely are partners in a couple, which is a beautiful thing as well. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
So Kundalini Yoga, we know, is such a big part of it is mantra and sound current. So that's why we're here today, to really learn so much more from you. You have so much study as far as how this all works. And so I just want to start with a little background on who you are and how you got into this. Your bios are amazing, so there's a lot of history and lineage here to today.
Well, I really want to just say that beyond the education is just having the experience of first feeling that mantra. The first time I really experienced the sound current through Kundalini Yoga, it brought tears to my eyes, and I didn't even know what the mantra meant.
Right.
But my heart knew.
Yep.
And it wasn't until maybe months later that I had actually gotten the translation of this particular mantra that I had been so attracted to on a soul level. And then I realized cognitively that connection, but that's really a whole nother story. But briefly, it was really about releasing the karmas of past family situation. Mm-hmm. And so that particular mantra, which is in Kundalini Yoga, a big mantra is called a Shabad, was something that I was so drawn to, and I think was probably the beginning of my whole in-depth journey through mantra, sound, and
sure, like why was it having this big effect on me?
Exactly.
Why was I feeling it so strongly? I do want to go back a little bit to explain what is mantra, you know, even breaking down ma and tra, because a lot of our viewers don't understand, and it can be very scary for some people, not understanding what mantra really is and how it works. But so you found, how many years ago was that you had that beautiful
That
connection?
particular experience was probably about 20 years ago.
Okay, so that's a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And how about you, when you came to finding?
Well, I had been doing yoga, mostly Ashtanga yoga, and I was out of graduate school about 4 or 5 years, and I come from a family that's pretty simple, pretty working class. And so I always had this, I felt like there was this division within me between sort of what happens up here, which is what's supposed to happen when you're in graduate school, or when you're a professor, and what happens right here, which is what happens when you're a human being. And I went to a couple of Kundalini yoga classes, and there's a prayer, I don't remember, Ardas Bai. And Ardas Bai is a mantra, and the way it was explained, I think actually Valerie was the one who explained this, but maybe it was someone else who was teaching, is that this prayer is set up so that if you don't need to know what you're asking for. You just say the sounds as you're supposed to say them, and then what you need comes to you. And it was so non-intellectual and so heartfelt, and it felt curative to me. It felt like, oh good, here's something that I don't have to process, that I don't have to intellectualize.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so this idea that sound can heal us all by itself, even if we don't understand the meaning, has continued to be the most powerful thing to me about Kundalini Yoga.
Yeah. So I would say, would you agree that mantra is really sound therapy on a simple level? Just
Sure.
Absolutely.
it's very healing.
And it's an ancient language which is directly giving us that experience with our soul's potential.
Yes.
And modern language has a limitation because it is modern. And so going into the Gurbani or the Gurmukhi, we have a direct experience with that divinity. There's a science behind it. So there is just having that experience through the heart. But then if we go ahead and go into a deeper study around how that actually works on a scientific level, it's fascinating and it's infinite. So right now we're studying with a man from India that's giving us tools to really decode that rag, and it's fascinating. It gives you a sense of a little bit more power behind what you're doing rather than just that simple experience, which is wonderful as well. Yet there's so much more.
When I first started hearing these Gurmukhi mantras, and I want you to explain what Gurmukhi is versus Hindu or Vedic mantras, they touched me someplace that the others had never touched before. And I don't know if it was a past life experience for me because maybe I've been with these before, but I feel for the years I've spent with them, which is not as long as you, that they just had that immediate shift in me. I didn't have to explain it. I just could feel it.
Right.
And I remember walking down the streets of Rishikesh for the first time years ago and hearing Sanatam Kaur being played all the time from the shops. And I was just like, oh, what is that? You know, I just was so drawn to it like that. And her sound current's very powerful that comes through her. And it just, of course, the mantra, the Gurmukhi is alive, obviously. And so I just felt it like you did, like so fast in my heart and so fast clearing. So go from there, you know, maybe, do you want to start with like what is Gurmukhi, what does that mean, or mantra in general?
I mean, and I think one of the reasons this strikes us all so deeply is because this language, when it's written, it's called Gurmukhi. When it's part of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib, when these shabads are put in there, those are Gurbani.
Gurbani,
And
right.
the Gurbanis were, or the Gurmukh language is a sacred language. It's not written for any other purpose.
Right, it's not everyday speaking like Punjab is
Right.
everyday speaking.
And so what we get from yoga in general is we get these people thousands of years ago who sat and contemplated what postures it would be, what sounds you would need to have for them to take all the learning that they brought with them into the next generation for people to reach a level of transcendence. All right, so when people use a Gurmukhi, they get those same benefits, right? Because we didn't come up with that language. We don't use that language to converse with other people. We only use that language to use our tongues a certain way on the top of our mouths. And if we're sensitive, which we tend to get more sensitive with the more yoga that we do, then we start to notice results. And in that sense, the work we're doing with Surinder Singh, the reason that I like that isn't because he's explaining why this particular touch of the tongue on the roof of the mouth is creating a result. what he's doing is saying, this is how the ancient yogis pronounced this word. And we need to pronounce it just like they pronounce it to get the full result.
Correct.
I still don't know the meaning of the Japji Sahib. I've never read it in English.
Oh.
And I've been doing it for years.
Oh.
Because it's almost like I don't want to, because I get such a strong feeling from the feel of it. I don't want to. I don't want it to move into my head. It's almost like I've worked, because I got a little bit overwhelmed with academia. It's almost like I've worked hard in the years since then to get back to this intuitive self that, that women.
I love to hear this. Oh.
You know.
Because so many students will like, well, I want to know what I'm saying. What does this mean? There's a little fear.
Absolutely.
And I didn't have that either. I just went in so trusting because I could feel it so powerfully in any of these mantras. I'm like, I don't care what it's saying. I can feel what it's doing.
Right. But on the other hand, you can understand why people who are being asked to chant something in a foreign language would, if they have critical minds, if they don't want to join an organization accidentally, why they would want to know. So one of the things that Valerie's been sort of preparing for today, and that we've both been thinking about a lot, is the basic Mool mantra, the basic mantra, and what those 10 or 12 words do mean. Not so much what they mean in English, but what effect they have on us when we say them, right?
Yeah, but I would just like to go back for a minute and say one other thing. I learned the Japji Sahib in English.
Ah.
Right.
I experienced it as a poem.
Yep.
And I could feel the energy coming through in our own language. So I think that, it's there as well, but the interesting thing is, as you know, the English language, the same Shabad takes probably twice as long to go through as when we're in the Gurbani.
Right.
And it doesn't rhyme or roll quite as well.
Well, it doesn't, but that just shows how exact that ancient language is. And it's actually decoded from Sanskrit, because Guru Nanak was a saint, a guru, a teacher for the people.
Right.
And what he did was he cleared that caste system. So it was a very revolutionary thing that he did, so that everyone could experience that beautiful state of consciousness rather than, you're not ready yet.
Right.
And so when people begin to recognize that, and that's why I really wanted to come here and talk about this, then they realize that, that he really was a man for the people, not just some particular sect or religion. And within this whole cosmology, this beautiful book called the Siddhi Guru Granth Sahib, there are many different paths. So it's a unified field of consciousness for all. So that's what I'll say about that. I love the story,
if you want to just touch real quick on the Japji, how it came to him as he went underwater for 3 days.
I thought that was really interesting, because I started meditating on the idea of coming here yesterday, and then I was driving, and of course, look what happened. A lot of us were submerged into the sea. Right. And there's a level of fear of letting go, right? But it's a beautiful that body of water is a beautiful metaphor for that state of consciousness where we are one. And then when he emerged with that revelation of the Japji Sahib.
So what is the story? That
he was under the water for 3 days, and when he came out, the whole Japji came out through him. That's where it was born.
It's like the womb. The water is a great representation of that throughout all different philosophies and cosmologies. So
and just for our viewers, the Japji is the prayer for the soul, or song for the soul, and it's universal for everybody. So it's not to be afraid of.
Exactly. So listen to it in English.
Yeah.
If you have that kind of propensity, then it's fine.
Right. You're going to be drawn to which way you want. And I've just been naturally learning each of the podis, one at a time. I'm interested in, what's this one about? What's this one do? What's this one do? That's kind of my mind. So.
Well, and that's how I started to pronounce it, is that when we were in teacher training in India, we were asked to take one card that would be one poti from the Jap Sahib. and see if it spoke to us. We saw
Right.
the English translation and say it 10 times a day to have it sort of internalized. And I just had such a good experience with that I started getting more and more of these cards and getting them separately. And I just couldn't wait when I was doing morning sadhana for them to come up to that part of
Right.
the, because that was the one part I knew, and I
Right.
could actually pronounce it
Right.
along with the readers. You know?
Right. Well, today we were going to focus a little bit on one of the mantras, which is the root mantra, and it's called the Mool mantra. And I love that Valerie picked this because this one has come to me all on its own, and I've been sleeping with it, which means listening to it while I sleep, for 2 years. That's what I do, and I put it very soft. So here we are, the Mool mantra.
And that is the opening line of this Japji Sab that we're referring to. And when Guru Nanak emerged from that body of water, he really put that just the Mool mantra itself explains the whole cosmology of yoga. That's the beauty of it. Within that one stanza, and it's Ek Onkar Satnam Kartar Purk Nirbho Nirvair Akal Murt Ajuni Sebang Guru Prasad Jap. So the first portion of that Ek Onkar, that Ek is this void, when he kind of submerged himself into that energy. I think it's a metaphor for before there was actually a manifestation, when we were just completely all kind of this primordial soup, right? And then we have this beautiful Ong, which is that big bang in science, which brings forth life through the sound current.
Right.
And in the Bible, the word, right? And Guru Nanak said, and then 10,000 rivers would flow through that sound of that Ong. And it created this expansion, the planets, the solar systems, the galaxies, us. And then that physical manifestation is the Kar. So we have that Ek Onkar. Very simple. It's so fundamental. And it explains so much in 3 beats.
Right.
And then that Sat Nam, which we hear a lot in Kundalini Yoga. And many people, when most of us were trained through Kundalini Yoga, it's truth is our identity. I really like to read it a little differently, that this is our reality, that we are that Ek Onkar, so that we can remember that we are one.
Yes, I agree.
Even though there's this dichotomy, because there's this separation, right? When that river was formed and 10,000 rivers flow, and we all have this individual consciousness, but it does have that undercurrent of oneness.
Yep.
So we have that Ek Onkar Satnam. And then with the Karta,
Purk.
Karta is the doer, and the Purk is the being of that doer. So it's that consciousness that's there all the time, which I think we just described.
Right.
And then we have this Nirbho Nirvair, and it's without fear. If we really truly grok that, as Ram Dass, the popular Ram Dass says, if we really grok that, then we don't have a fear. And if we don't have that fear, then there's not that give and take, that reaction, that war. I mean, we see it in our world. We see it within our own psyches. And if we can grab a hold of that feeling of, I am both the doer and the being, and remember that through our meditations, then hopefully, I know this sounds rather, high and rather, in a world that is so full of idealistic, so full of conflict, if we can meditate, then maybe within our own psyches we can have peace with that polarity.
Yeah.
Well, and Guru Nanak, the history of his time and his experience was, the warfare they had then makes what we have going on now seem like child's play. And it was mostly religious based. And so he brought the Hindus together. I mean, his goal with this one mantra, the Japji Sahib, and especially the beginning of it, was to convince people with a couple of sounds that this was silly what they were doing, having people of different religious sects fighting against each other. So you have the Islam, and so he said, all God is one. That's how he started the whole thing. So it was more than just sound, you know. He had this goal of ending warfare.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And so then we pick up with a call murit.
A call means really time, and then means to be without that time. And that's a really, really big hurdle, I think, for myself and most of us. We live in a world that is segmented through time.
Right.
I mean, just waking up and coming here today, looking at the clock, making sure, you know, that I knew where I would. We need to be in both places at once, that feeling of timelessness, yet at the same time we are in a linear form.
In the world, but not so of the world.
Exactly.
Yeah. And not so worried about where you are in this stage of life, too. I was at the Kroger the other day, and the woman in front of me was asked to give her age, and she would not. She gave the February 12th, she said, but she said, well, what year? The woman who was, you know, and she wouldn't say. So she said, well, I need to see your driver's license, because she was so conscious of what age she was.
Right.
You know, and so a kal is, it means that there's the soul within us that has no concern about the age that our body has.
Undying.
Right.
And I think the rhythm of mantra will give us that sense of continuum rather than the increments. I mean, it's like this flow, and in the Hindu cosmology they have Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, which is kind of that dance of time and coming into that transformation and then moving back out into that mind stream and then back in again. So that's the beauty of mantra. It gives us that form within the formless.
Right. We probably should get going, because I want another hour with you guys. So,
Okay.
So Ajuni.
Oh, yeah. You know, Ajuni, Saibong, I want to put those two together because it's paradoxical. We have karmas. We have a stream of consciousness beyond the karma. So there is a free will, but then we are born with certain limitations, because we can't really look at every single dialogue that we have or experience that we have as being a complete blank slip, right? There's usually something behind it that has created this remembrance again. So we have this cycle that we're bound by, but at the same time, we have free will. We do have choice within that. So I think that would be the easiest way to explain that portion of the mantra.
And then Guru Prasad.
And it's through the gift of that Guru, which is that beautiful light within us, that we can gain that sense of timelessness, that we can go back into that cycle of
knowing.
Yes.
The gift. Jup.
And just to repeat that.
Right, don't forget it.
And to have that as a kind of a time within us that is without having to even think. It's a rhythm that we have appropriated into ourselves through practice.
That really is what the japa does. And a lot of people, when they begin taking Kundalini Yoga, why do we have to repeat this over and over and over again? And this was the philosophy of these yogis. That's what they thought would be transcendental. If we went outside of our mind and just kept on saying something that was important to say, then it would permeate us and the community. And so if you do read the English translation, I said I didn't read it, but I kind of know what it says. The English translation of the Japji Sahib, it's all about repeating the name of the Lord.
Right.
It's all about knowing that this name, the repetition of the name, is enough. Everything else is extra work. So if you could just settle down and find the right sound and then repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, the healing can take place.
It's kind of like reprogramming yourself.
It is.
Yeah. Well, we're getting down to the end of the show, so we have a few more lines, but I also want to maybe spend some time in the whole mantra. So where do you want to go? We have like 3 minutes.
We have 3 minutes? Well, let's just do there's so much more that we could speak
to
around
part
this,
2.
Because it really, one thing I just want to say very quickly, the Mool Mantra is like the pin that holds the time piece of the whole universe. It's that powerful. It's a compass.
And the part we got through is really the basic Mool Mantra. That's the original Mool Mantra through japa. the rest of it was tacked on later.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Ekongkar. We'll just put it in sound. Asatnam Kata Purit Nirva Nirve Akamurit Ajuni Sepam Guru Prasad Jap. So the thing we can do with these sounds is we can repeat them, we can sing them, we can say them silently.
Mm-hmm.
You can use the Mool Mantra, as you know, when you're sleeping or when you're in line or when you're driving. You can say it to yourself. There's no limit to when you can sort of heal yourself through mantra. And for some people, that's a very liberating thing.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
And it clears the karma, because what it does is it really gives you this remembrance of your soul's purpose.
Yes.
And that's what I love about the Mool Mantra.
And I feel they work profoundly and quickly. Do you? Yeah. I think it's amazing that how they clean and take out the trash, basically, is what I would say.
Yeah, I feel that way with prana even more than I do with mantra right now. I know that's a different topic. If my brain is going too much, then if I can just do this, all of a sudden it slows down. But with mantra, probably I don't use it as often because it's just so non-Western, you know.
Oh, you're
Breathing
right.
is...
But using the mantra with the breath.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you
go.
But see, I have mantra just constantly playing all the time in my house, my car, my home, at work, and everything. Well, we got to get going.
Okay.
It was so great. This is such a great topic. So I just want to thank you so much for being with us again today. And I think we're going to do another show for sure. So
thank you for helping educate people around this beautiful technology, Catherine.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being with us again. That was amazing, and we have so much more we could cover, and we probably will do another show. And thank you for joining us today. I hope that really helped kind of demystify mantra a little bit. It's such a powerful practice of sound therapy. So join us at Karma Yoga. You can find more information out about us and when Valerie and Dale teach at www.karma-yoga.net. Namaste.